You either need to be all in or all out. There's no real in between. The reality of becoming successful, the reality of creating any type of results in your life, the reality of bringing something from the mind into reality is you have to have full dedication, full commitment, full 100% effort into that thing in order to make it real, in order to bring it into reality. Think about any form of success is going to be a big leap for most people, right? So in order to make that leap, you have to have 100% commitment. Um, if you think of a comparison would be if you're jumping from one building to the next, right? If you're jumping from one building to the next, well, what's going to happen if you try to make that jump but you're not fully committed, right? You're going to have a moment of hesitation. You're going to have a weaker stride. You're going to have weaker technique. Your attention is not going to be with it, and your jump is going to be weaker. And if you hesitate in the air, you're going to flail. You're going to, make it more likely that you fall as a result of that, right? So that moment of hesitation is going to make it very likely you miss your jump, and you end up falling multiple stories down and dying if you're jumping from building to building, right? That's the reality of missing a jump there. But in life, when trying to become successful, it's very similar, right? We fall into these deep pits of despair when we try to make these leaps but don't have enough commitment to actually follow through. And therefore, we end up in this limbo state where we're half in, we're half out. We want to commit, we want to do the thing, but we just aren't quite there to fully commit and fully dedicate everything to that purpose, right? But if you make that leap with 100% commitment, it may be difficult, right? It may be hard, but you will be able to make it to the other side much easier than if you don't have that full level of commitment, right? I can think of many examples where I didn't think I could do something. And jumping from building to building is a good example, right? Where I didn't think I could do something, but just by fully committing to it, you make it work. You make it possible just by having 100% dedication to I'm going to do this. You will be able to make it happen out of what might be, you know, a less likely scenario to make it happen, right? For someone who is broke or is poor, it's not likely they're just going to randomly stumble upon success. But if they have 100% dedication and commitment to it, anybody could make it happen, right? It's just a matter of being committed. So why is it so bad to be half in, half out, right? This limbo state that I used earlier. Well, being in this limbo state means that one of one portion of yourself, one half of yourself is dedicated and focused on your goal, is focused on achieving your goal, whatever that may be. But the other half of you is focused on staying comfortable, staying where you are right now, right? Staying in pleasure and bliss, or just pleasure, not bliss, sorry. But staying in pleasure, staying in comfort, right? It's craving the addictions, it's craving the pleasure and stimulus from the easy dopamine activities that we have available to us now, right? So therefore, you have half of you, 50% of you, pulling you in the opposite direction from actually going to achieve your goals, right? You have 50% of you pulling you away from being able to be successful in life, while the other 50% of you wants to be successful and is trying to be successful, right? So therefore, what's going to happen is you will make some progress. You will feel as though you're moving the needle forward. But in reality, all of the progress that you make, you will regress in the end because you're only able to go so far before you stop, right? You're only able to build up so much momentum before it halts your progression, right? Before that half of you trying to pull you away from the success halts your progression. And every time you start and then stop and then start again, you don't build up momentum as if you have put in the effort once to start and then gone back to continue that momentum forward. You start, you stop, and then you have to start again, meaning the momentum is never actually building up anywhere, right? You're building a little bit of momentum and then canceling it out before starting over to build up more momentum, right? And this is a very chaotic state to be in, right? Because you want to move forward, you want to progress, but you can't fully progress. No matter how much you try to reduce the bad activities, if there is a portion of yourself that is not fully committed, fully dedicated to just destroying those habits, destroying that identity, and becoming somebody new, then you won't be able to fully shake it. You won't be able to fully break it. You might be able to suppress it for a period of time, suppress it for long enough to maybe get the work done, but in the end, you will always fall back into that same trap. So, why do we want to be 100% committed? That's the simple answer to that is because that is the only way that we can achieve the goals that we set out for, right? The only way that we can achieve them in full, experience a full transformation, and become the new self is if we have 100% dedication and commitment. If we focus 100% of our effort on achieving that goal. However, if we are half in and half out, we will still feel like we're progressing, right? We'll still feel like we're making progress. But every time we stop and that other part of ourselves brings us back, we are canceling out that momentum. We are canceling out that progression, right? Results can't compound without consistency, right? And consistency can only prevail with 100% dedication, 100% effort, right? And so, how can we actually go about being all in, right? How can we actually go towards being all in? Because, like I said, you either have to be all in or you might as well just be all out. Because if you are half out, right, you won't be able to push the needle forward enough to make real change, right? Because your default state is your addictions, is where you're at right now. So if that's your default state, that's your most automatic state to enter into. So it may take a significant amount of effort to become a new self, to transform your life, to create some type of success. But it takes just a little bit of effort to slip and fall back into that old self, right? So every little bit of effort towards not progressing is completely canceling out your ability to transform into this new self and fully setting you back into the old self, meaning you're starting over every single time. So how can we create 100% dedication, 100% focus on our goals? Identity change. We need to transform and change our identity, become somebody who is completely against these bad vices, right? Who's completely against the comforts of the old self, and therefore is completely and utterly dedicated and focused on achieving their goals. And we create an identity through small, simple, step-by-step actions, right? So every single moment you have an opportunity to choose between two identities, two people, right? You can become the new self. You can become the best version of yourself, right? You can go and you can build the business. You can create the success. Or you can go about being the old self, right? You can suppress your real desires. You can shut down your drive for more success, your drive to progress and move forward, right? And settle into a state of comfort and ease, right? You can do this. This is an option. You can absolutely do it 100%. If that's what you want to do, go right ahead and do it. But if you want to be successful, you have to make the effort. You have to push through and become a new self, right? Become the envisioned version of yourself, right? Everybody has that vision in their mind. You have to be and live as that person, right? So changing your identity looks like in each moment that you have a decision, right? Every moment you have a decision, even right now, right? I spent a lot of my days smoking weed and watching self-improvement content when I was younger. And what happened was I wanted to take action, right? Everything in me wanted this lifestyle, but I had the choice to either turn off the video, put down the weed, and actually do something about it. Or in reality, like with that situation, it's actually just stop doing anything, right? It's just put the weed down and go, Like, get out of that space, go somewhere, be somewhere else, turn the video back on later. But you had to make a choice, right? I had to make a choice to actively choose not to. But what I did instead was I actively chose to listen, learn, but take the action to keep smoking, stay out there, right? And out there is, I used to smoke in my garage, I used to smoke outside. So wherever I'd end up being, right? I would never, you know, I never liked to go out a lot and smoke with friends and stuff. I was never big into it, but I had a little bit pretty much all the time, and I would smoke it sometimes at night, like go outside or whatever. But that's not important. What's important is I would always watch self improvement content while I was doing it. And the action of choosing to stay where I was, just physically stay where I was, um, and keep smoking was an action towards the old self, even though I was trying to learn how to become the new self. I was learning all this stuff about self-improvement. Everything I'm teaching you guys now, the foundation of it was built while I was still smoking, right? Because I had to learn who I could become otherwise in order to be able to break that cycle. I couldn't break that cycle unless I knew a new version of myself, essentially. Because when I was without it, I didn't know who to be, I didn't know what to be, I didn't know what to do. And that's the issue for a lot of people. When you're trying to commit to this change, you don't know who to be, right? You don't know who you're actually meant to be. So there's a process of, you do have to transform your mind. You have to create a new identity, a new image of who you are, and then you can make these changes. So in my example, I chose to keep taking the actions that kept me where I was, even though I was trying to formulate a new identity. And therefore, it took me longer to create that identity. It took me longer to become that person. But you have a choice in every single moment. Every single moment, you have a choice between your new self, the ultimate version of yourself, the best version of yourself, and the old self, the darker self, right? The evil version of yourself that just wants to take and destroy all of your energy and your light and your potential. So you have a choice in each and every moment. So identity change isn't this big drawn out process. It's every moment you get to choose. All right, I have two actions, right? Each action reflects one of my two personalities, my two selves that I'd like to become, the two timelines I'd like to live on, right? And so I have a choice on which action I take, right? I don't have a choice between who I am right now and what I may feel about myself right now and what I may believe about myself right now and what everybody else around me thinks about me. But I have these two choices, and based on which choice I choose, that will determine what personality I'm actually embedding myself with, what energy I'm merging with, right? Think about this. Every time you take an action, you're transforming energy. Depending on the type of action, you're transforming energy in a positive way or you're transforming it in a negative way. Think about this. I'm transforming energy right now by converting my thoughts, my knowledge into a point and a video for you guys to watch and then learn about what I'm trying to teach. That's transformation of energy for a positive thing, right? I'm creating something that will likely benefit somebody else. Or I could transform energy in the same way by saying, I don't feel like making a video today because I don't, right? There's not many days where I'm like really feeling like making a video. And that's just because I like to record in the morning. And so I'm never like, yeah, let's go record right now because I'm usually recording in the morning. And I get like my big energy spike pretty much right after I record, right? Because that's when I'm about to go train. So I get a big spike of energy right before I go to actually train. And then, from probably around 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. until about 5-ish, maybe 6, that's my best time. That's when I have the most energy. That's when I'm the most active, right? So because that's the time that I'm the most active, that's the time when I have the most motivation as well, the most energy, therefore the most motivation. But therefore, I don't necessarily want to make this video. Although, today I'm feeling good and I always enjoy making my content, but it's not the first thing I would like to be doing. I could choose to divert my attention, transform my energy in a different way, and therefore not produce a video, not produce content, but maybe I go and I train, or maybe I go and I do something else, right? I'm transforming my energy in those cases still positively, but not in the way that I had intended. I could also go and choose to smoke weed. I could choose to go and jerk off, whatever. Those are also transforming energy in the same way, but negatively. So the way that training or creating content would benefit me, that transformation of energy returns to me as positive energy because I'm giving my energy for those things. If I'm taking energy, which is what you do when you're doing drugs or you jerk off or you have sex, right? Well, having sex in an unsustainable way. And I will be getting into this in my channel, but sexual alchemy is a way that you can have sex without losing energy. But when I refer to having sex, most of the time it's the way most people consider sex. So therefore, you're losing and taking energy. Right? You're taking energy from the individual you're having sex with, um, and they're taking energy from you. If you don't understand how this works, that's what's normally happening, right? So you're basically taking energy, and therefore the return on that is energy being taken from you, right? So you're destroying parts of yourself as the expense of taking more from the world around you versus giving, I'm sorry if you can hear that, versus giving your energy, giving more of yourself, and as a result you receive more of yourself, right? So you give energy and you receive more of yourself as a result of that. Take energy, you lose parts of yourself as a result of that, right? So you have these choices in each and every moment, the choice for positivity and the choice for growth, or the choice for negativity and destruction, right? And based on the choice you make, that will determine the identity that you're reinforcing, right? So identity change isn't as much about envisioning the version of you you want to become and actively taking the actions. You can do that, that's great. But where identity change really sets in is in those small micro moments, those micro decisions. Maybe you just completed one of your best days, your best work days, your most productive days, but you smoke weed, and now you're like, hey, I was so productive. Maybe I could just smoke one joint. It won't be that bad. You know what I mean? That's a micro moment where you get to make a decision that will either fully reinforce the identity you're putting in all of that effort for and trying to become, or you can reinforce the fact that you're still the old version of yourself. You're still the old you, right? And that's the identity you end up reinforcing as a result. And so therefore that's the experience you then have. So these micro moments, the ones that you don't really think so much about, are actually the most important when it comes to transforming your identity. Now, the next thing I have is creating a schedule using Google Calendar or whatever. I think Google Calendar is the best. Create a routine that is optimized for you to be focused on your goal. Fill each part of the day with something to do that will either be beneficial to your goal specifically and directly, or that will be beneficial to you and your self-development, therefore that will benefit your goal in the end. So basically focus your day on creating blocks for you to work towards your goal, whether that's training or it's deep work. And then in your free time that's available, instead of your leisurely time being scrolling or doing drugs or whatever, right? Spend that time doing other self-improvement habits that would benefit you. Spend that time reading, spend that time meditating, right? If your main thing is deep work, spend the extra blocks in your days training and exercising. And if it's the reverse, if your main thing is training and exercise, well, find a business model that you can do on the side that you can do in those free blocks of time during the day. I think having business and being an athlete is literally the best combination you could ever have, and probably the only one that works optimally. I do not believe that you could do two businesses, and I do not believe that you could play professionally at least two sports, at least for like the majority of your life. My goal, I want to be able to develop skills in sports and be able to compete and play all my favorite sports with all of the best in the world at those sports, which is a level of development fitness wise and athletically that, you know, is a very big jump for most people. But if I focus on the fitness and the athleticism, you can pick up on skills naturally. However, I will never be able to pursue soccer and snowboarding professionally. Does that make sense? So I will never actually pursue other sports professionally, but you can work up to being at that level. Um, so the point, I don't believe you can do two sports professionally, at least for the majority of your life, meaning like from your prime, your 20s to your 30s, your prime into your 30s, right? Your 20s into your 30s. You can't do two sports professionally, but I do believe you can be a successful entrepreneur and have a successful business and be a professional at your sport, right? So be a professional athlete and create a business. I believe those two are possible together, because I think that the perfect daily split is to work to the point that your mental capacity is tapped, then train to the point that your physical capacity is tapped, in which you will recharge your mental energy and allow yourself the ability to then work more. And then once you've tapped your mental energy again, you do it again in reverse. And basically, that's my day. I work, I train, I work, I train, and then I eat and I go to bed, right? And this is the perfect split because it allows you to work your mind, and then while you're recharging your mental energy, you can work the body. And then this back and forth split allows you to basically sustain heavy work blocks and heavy training blocks throughout the day, and you can do this every single day because you have these recovery periods in between. Um, but essentially create a schedule that optimizes for your goal, and then in the blocks in between put in other self-improvement habits that you might be able to do in order to make more progress. And then if you're like okay, there's all these like tiny little blocks, just extend one of your work blocks or extend, whatever. um and then that way you basically want to fill the entire day, because then if you have the entire day full, you have a whole routine that covers the entire day. Well, now what can happen is as you work through the day, as you move through the day, you just follow that routine. And by following that routine to a T, you never come to a point where you're like, maybe I want to smoke. Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to do that. You're always busy. You're always focused. You're always concentrated. And what will happen is over time, if you do this for maybe 2 weeks straight, if you do this for a month straight, you will become and reinforce this new identity, and you will be 100% dedicated and focused on your goal, because that's the lifestyle you've been living for so long. When it becomes your lifestyle, when it becomes literally what you eat, breathe, and sleep, then it's very hard not to be 100% dedicated to it, right? And it makes it a lot easier to stay consistent and stay focused because you always have something to do at each point in the day, and it's just the same routine, the same schedule every single day, right? That is the best way to live because it's the most predictable. It's the easiest way to make more progress because you're reducing the amount of resistance that it takes you to get to your work block. And so therefore the effort put in is not to get you to the point where you're starting to work, but actually to get through the work. Um, and therefore you can progress a lot faster, you can produce a lot more, you can be more productive. But also it's just beneficial to you as an individual because you don't have this split between who you are. You're able to be 100% you, 100% who you know you're meant to be, and living in alignment with that is like true bliss, right? It is absolutely the most amazing feeling that there is just being 100% dedicated to what you're doing and not allowing yourself to be, straying off that path, right? Especially for masculine men, right? Being hyper fixated, hyper focused on these specific goals is just such a beautiful experience. Um, so that is all I have for this video. This one was longer. This is the second time I recorded this. I'm pissed. I recorded a perfect version of this video, and then my mic died like halfway through the video. But yeah, that is all I have. And if you guys enjoyed, go ahead and click the subscribe button. And you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel. And if you guys want help transforming your lives through self-improvement, DM me on Instagram. It's the first link in the description, take you right to my Instagram. Send me a DM. I will work with you one-on-one. And if you're not interested in a higher ticket coaching program, but you still want the same transformation, you want more content and knowledge on self-improvement, well, I'm creating a program, a full spectrum course, well, a full spectrum program full of a bunch of courses on how to do self-improvement. Basics like routine mastery, dopamine detoxing, diet, fitness, and sexual transmutation, and much, much more. So if that's something you guys are interested in, you can go ahead and click the same link in my description, go to my Instagram, and just send me a DM, be like, hey man, I'm interested in the new program. Is there a way I can get early access? And my response to that will be hell yeah. So if you guys want early access to that program, go ahead and let me know. And if you guys want to be some of the last to be able to get into my one-on-one coaching, you can go ahead and click that same link and send me a DM there. But that's all I got for you guys in this video, and I hope you really enjoyed. I hope it was helpful, but I'm out of here. Peace.